Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another beautiful episode of the I Hate the Antichrist podcast. This is your host, Aoeui. I am here with my guest, Rob. Rob, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good. A lot more relaxed than I have been earlier in the week with a couple of those debates. Have you seen both of them?
I didn't see both of them. I saw the first one, I think, the one that was on your pinned for a while on Twitter.
Okay. For with me and Steve.
Yeah, Steve Hinkle, right?
That was a brutal debate.
Yeah, that was pretty rough.
Yeah,
That was
my
rough
first
all
one too.
around.
Just in all fairness, that was my first debate, and Steve's a veteran. So.
Well, thank you for coming on. I hope that this ends up being a much more relaxed debate, and that we can not even a debate.
I had a conversation with Aaron on Friday night, and the conversation went well, but the conversation only went well because I was giving him concessions that I knew that Aaron is he's a very hostile, hard-headed atheist, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Oh, you don't say.
Yeah.
The people listening to the podcast.
Judging by our DM conversation, we're in the same in agreement there.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Arn Ra. I think that he's not a good person. I'll just leave it at that. I think he's an anti-intellectual. I think he is
like
against.
I said too, like he what he does is he conflates evidence with assertions and claims. Like all he does is make claims. Oh, this is evidence. I'm like, basically all you've done is say there is no God, and then give assertions for why you think there is no God. That's not evidence.
Yeah, his whole position is begging the question.
Oh, for sure. Which is ironic because that's what he said. That's who he said Christianity is and religion is. In my show with him, did you see any of the show I had on with him or?
No, not with Aaron. No.
Okay, well, maybe I'll link it. I don't if I haven't already. I'll link it to you and to your Twitter and DM after the show.
And I'll throw it into the description so that other people can watch your stuff if they want.
Yeah, sounds good.
But for now, let the people know. Actually, sorry, I'm gonna do a quick ad roll first. So the I Hate the Antichrist podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. First of all, the podcast is sponsored by two sources. There is the one who hosts our website, that is WebArchist. BJ has been a really great partner of the channel. She hosts our website. She actually made the whole site. She's awesome. And you don't have to worry about any of that funding unprincipled people. So go ahead and check out WebArchist. And then if this is a regular sponsor, I'm also sponsored by Dubby.gg. They're an energy drink company. I'm planning on doing a giveaway of some of their product here soon, some of their tumblers. So that'll be awesome. So if you want 10% off of energy drink mixes, go to dubby.gg and use the code IHTA, short for I Hate the Antichrist, IHTA. So back to the show. Rob, let's start off with this. Who are you? What do you do? And what are you working on?
Those are great questions. So I'll just give a brief
start off on the tough side.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll just give a brief bio by way of introduction. So as I said, my name is Rob. My last name is Groen. I'm Groen. My Twitter handle is @RobLovesJC. My YouTube channel is my first full name and last name, Robert Groen. Groen again is the last name. Right now I'm unemployed and looking for work, which is why I have all this time to commit to online debates. I just did a debate with Steve McCrae on Tuesday on the epistemology of atheism. I did a debate with Jackson Wheat, whose handle on Twitter is @JacksonWheat1 on evolution versus creation. And I did a video hangout with Aaron Ra Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for about an hour 15. And the conversation went well, but that's because, as I said, I gave Aaron a lot of concessions because I knew that if I had pushed... I mean, I even said one time that he was taking something out of context. He's like, how? Like, I'm like, well, if you're gonna like rage against me for just saying you're taking it out of context, like, obviously this isn't gonna go too well if I push back
Yeah.
harder on other things that you're taking out of context. And if you sit, I'm not gonna post them, but if you saw the email correspondence that I've had with him today, like, it's just he's not a good person. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. He's full of venom
Oh
from
yeah,
my
for sure.
understanding.
I mean,
So
and I said to him on the beginning of his show, it's like, apparently you got a bit of a reputation for being belligerent, and then he was belligerent to me in his Twitter discourse and email discourse of like, and I actually emailed him saying, listen, man, like, I'm saying this out of like concern, like, you lack patience. I said, a man who lacks patience lacks wisdom. A man who lacks wisdom is foolish.
true dat. Seriously, true dat.
Like it's, and honestly, I was thinking about, Proverbs 1:7, right?
Yeah.
So I thought to myself as I was like walking over here in my apartment, like, Aaron is like the literal proof of the last part of Proverbs 1:7. I'll say Proverbs 1:7 so your listeners know. Proverbs 1:7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." Aaron
Yes.
is living proof of a fool who despises wisdom and instruction because he rejects God.
Absolutely. And it's even funnier. For him, it definitely proceeds from the hatred of wisdom and instruction.
Mm. You know, the thing
so
is, too, is like, oh yeah, he called me out for saying someone was a fool, quoting Matthew 5:22, which is
like
a lot
he
of
knows what that frickin' means.
I know, but the other thing is, like, and I also said, like, listen when I said it context. Notice Aaron's quoted Matthew 5:22, but I intentionally leaves out Psalm 14:1. Why is that, Aaron? No response from Aaron.
That's funny.
I
So
know.
tell me your religious story. So what are you now? What did you start off as? Tell me about your journey.
Sure. So, I'll give Cole's notes. I was born and raised very conservative Christian family. Like, my parents are Calvinists. We're Calvinists. I still say they're Reformed. They still hold to a strong Reformed tradition.
Mainline or Baptist?
I would say that it's hard to say because my parents are not. They don't believe what's the word? Cessationism. My parents are not cessationists.
Okay.
But they believe in the strong preaching of Scripture and like living out your Christian life has to be lived out practically. It can't just be pie in the sky.
What take did your family grow up with on pedobaptism? That's the usual
What does
deciding
that mean
factor.
again? Can you explain that?
That
to me?
is whether they baptize people on belief only or if they baptize familially.
Oh, they baptize. They do believers baptism and it's
Okay, so Reformed Baptist
they
probably.
They do infant baptism and believers baptism.
Oh, okay. If they do, so infant baptism is pedobaptism. So
Okay. They don't
if
only
you
do that. They also do. They consider confession of faith or believers baptism. Though.
yeah,
They're
everyone does believers baptism. Well,
Okay.
except for the
Okay,
Salvation Army.
Okay,
but-
well they agree with both.
okay, yeah.
They believe that the promises are for the children of believers, but then also those children eventually have to grow up and make the decision for themselves.
So that would be considered some form of mainline Reform theology, maybe Dutch
Yeah.
Reform or Presbyterian or something
Okay.
along those lines.
But also, again, I think it's important to note because they are not cessationists, and they get a lot of strange looks sometimes from people in their church. And I appreciate the fact that my parents are not cessationists.
I'm also not a cessationist. Well,
I've never been.
I'm a technical cessationist. So what I mean by that is I think that the gifts still exist. They are still valid. They can technically still happen. But the situation in which they would normally arise doesn't really come up very often anymore.
I would agree with that. I mean, I've had miracles in my life, but they have not been. They've been far and few between, physically speaking.
Yeah, and I definitely don't agree with the way charismatics describe speaking in tongues.
No,
That's clearly not what it is.
well, no, it's not. No. Tongues is always what's meant to be an intelligible language. The reason it needs
Yeah.
interpretation is because people understand different languages. Agreed?
Basically, my understanding was that one person is gifted with interpretation, one
Yeah.
person is gifted with tongues, and what tongues
Yeah.
is you have the ability to speak what to you is your own native language, and then
Yes.
somebody else has the ability to hear it, and they're like, "Hey, that's my language. What the heck?"
Exactly.
But nobody
That's what
else is
Well,
understanding
that's what
it.
Pentecost is always about. Right?
Exactly.
You remember? I mean, the key verse there is it's an Acts. I think it's in 3. It says, "And everyone heard in their own native tongue, language."
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's the key context there. So that we know it wasn't gibberish, because Luke records it. Luke wrote the book of Acts, says, and they heard and understood in their own language. So obviously,
Exactly.
tongues isn't talking about some gibberish that we hear in charismatic churches today.
Pentecostals get rebuked. We're not even 15 minutes in. all right, so let's
Here's the thing is
get
that-
into the.
One second,
Yeah.
I just want to quote one verse because I think it's important when we talk about spiritual gifts, and that is Paul says that we are not supposed to blindly accept everything, to paraphrase, but we're called to test the spirits,
Yes, exactly.
and that requires not everything goes.
Exactly. And
Okay,
and
go
also one of my favorites to run off of that is if I remember right, it's Romans 12:2.
Yes, do not conform to the pattern of this world, be transformed by
Yes.
the renewal of your mind, that you may know God's will, His good, perfect, and pleasing will.
From my understanding, the most important operative phrase there is test and approve.
Yeah.
Because the morality that God has given us is written on our hearts, and we have that ability.
My thing is also at the beginning of that verse where it says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world." So that tells us that the world's pattern and God's pattern are at odds.
They absolutely are and can be. The Greek word there is the same word used for nations, by the way.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah. All right, so
Makes sense.
let's go on to the meat of the conversation. What
Sure.
are you Genesis wise? So I understand you're a creationist, a full blown creationist. I
Yes.
understand you do
Young Earth
agree with
creationist, all that jazz.
young Earth. Okay, so young Earth. Okay, and so how young is that to you? Is that 6,000? Is that 12,000?
I think it's a range because I think it's impossible to listen the age of the Earth for certain, but I will say it's in the thousands of years for sure.
Okay. So for me, we've discussed this. I'm a theistic evolutionist.
Right.
However, I do want to put a few things out there so that you understand my position fully. I absolutely believe in a historical Adam and Eve, a historical Garden of Eden, an actual tree of the knowledge of good and evil, an actual tree of life. I believe in the fall. I believe God created everything and is the creator of all. And I also believe I have no reason biblically to deny evolution because of all that.
Well, how do you square evolution with the flood?
We can absolutely agree with the flood. Without it, there's nothing in the flood that negates evolution. I don't
Almost
see.
every evolution I talk to will vehemently disagree with you on that.
Well, you haven't talked to a theistic evolutionist, have you?
That's fair. You're right. Okay. Explain to me how you square evolution with a global flood.
So, the global flood wiped out a significant number of species.
All species, except for the ones that are aquatic, which I guess is a lot.
Well, actually, there would have been a lot of people don't realize this, there would have been an extremely significant of aquatic species heavily impacted as well.
Aquatic species that what?
Would have been heavily impacted, if not wiped out as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't dispute that.
Because saline waters being flooded with fresh water from the sky,
Yeah, I know.
the flooding
I
of salt
don't
water
dispute
going
that,
into
but
rivers.
I'm just saying the only creatures who would have been able to survive a flood would have been aquatic. That's
Yeah.
all.
What I adhere to there is that the vast majority of extinctions that a lot of young Earth creationists say happened then, such as dinosaurs and the like, those did not happen during the global flood, in my opinion. So, in
No, I
my
agree.
understanding,
No.
the global flood was the Younger Dryas period during the melting of the global ice caps. That would have been roughly 12,000 to 14,000 years ago, and I place Adam and Eve 14,000 to 16,000 years ago, around there. So, in my position, um, there's no reason in Genesis to deny evolution. So I have a question for you, real quick. What is your understanding of what
One sec,
evolution
one sec, one
is?
sec.
You got something going on in the background?
All right, go ahead.
No problem.
It's a little
What
bit
is
noisy here so for a second.
just a quick and dirty? What is your general understanding of what evolution is and how it works?
Micro or macro, or just generally speaking?
I just call microevolution adaptation,
Yeah, I do too.
and
No thinking person would deny it. Micro.
Yeah, yeah.
Um.
You'd be a fool to deny adaptation.
Oh yeah, for sure.
A
I mean,
complete fool.
that'd be like as dumb as saying if you'd like if a poodle and a Labrador breeded, you wouldn't have adaptation in
Yeah,
their
yeah,
breeding.
exactly.
That would just be stupid.
But as far as we'll just use the term macroevolution. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I mean by evolution.
I don't believe macroevolution because it doesn't make any sense to me. Like I don't see any
Let's start
logic.
with describing what you think the process is.
Okay, well, I think that macroevolution is, if I can put it in simplest terms like as I can, low life forms over time, slowly becoming like kind of building on each other, and it's like you got a single cell to two cells, and so on and so forth, to over time eventually you have a fully functioning being like we are.
I would say that it's kind of similar to that, but a lot of creationists don't understand the actual pattern that goes into it. So the actual scientific description of how evolution takes place physically in the world. Let's use an example of one generally accepted organ system. So let's start with no, not that one. The circulatory system. That's an easy one. So
Okay.
the earliest organisms that we know of that we have in the fossil record are going to be like mollusks, crustaceans, something very similar, archaea of that general idea. So we're talking like bilateral symmetry. They have a left side and a right side, and a front and a back, and the front and the back aren't the same, but the left and the right mirror each other. Bilateral symmetry. So in the circulatory system, and we have this today. Animals had hemolymph. Animals still
Animals
have
had what, sorry?
hemolymph. Hemolymph.
What is that? What is that?
So hemolymph is what transmits oxygen throughout the body in creatures that don't have a circulatory system. It forces them to be somewhat smaller, and you'll notice when you look on their exoskeletons, they have little pits. Those pits increase their surface area, allowing and those pits are usually only about as big as water molecules at their smallest point.
Okay.
So it allows oxygenated water to flow in and out of the exoskeleton of the creature.
Okay.
Modern crustaceans and mollusks have that, and you follow the line back all the way through history, all the way through time.
Here's my contention. A friend of mine put it just from a theological point of view. Why would God create a process by which atheists could? Well, I mean, atheists pretty much have to adopt evolution if they're going to be atheistic.
Mm-hmm.
And why would God create a theory that he doesn't get the credit for?
Who says
Why
he doesn't
would-
get the credit?
I mean, no, like atheists will Well, obviously, every atheist by default would pretty much have to be an evolutionist.
Well, they just take away the credit from God on everything because they're
Okay,
fools.
so
The
the thing
Proverbs
is, like,
1:7.
exactly, that's true. I don't. Yeah, that's a good point. But I guess trying to say is like I don't understand why. Like I don't see in Genesis any kind of indication. You might say there's nothing in Genesis to deny evolution, but there's nothing in Genesis that would support evolution either.
I mean, I'm okay with that. I don't see any reason to say. I don't say that Genesis 1 teaches evolution.
Yeah, but the thing is, inferring something because there's absence of or there's silence from it is not a good way to think about it either necessarily.
That's not what's happening. I'm not inferring something from silence.
No, I'm not saying you are, but I'm just saying that's not a good way to go about it.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's not a good way, nor is it the right way to go about it. You shouldn't ever take an argument from silence as sacrosanct.
But
However,
if Genesis is literally the beginning of history,
I don't agree with that.
Okay,
well,
why not?
History maybe. So first of all, there's.
I mean, I'm not saying that Moses Moses wrote I think Pentateuch around 1,000 or 1,400 years after the
what I'm saying is that Genesis 1 is not a chronological description nor a creative description. Genesis 1 is not an actual creation account. It is a framework account. So what do I mean by that? Look at day 4. How does day 4 work? What happened on day 4? The luminaries were created, creating the time cycle that we understand today, that the stars and moon are used to track the days and the seasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the day existing without, or the light existing without the sun, moon, and stars, how do you square that with the young Earth creationist account that takes this hyper literally in order 24-hour periods?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So on day 1, light is created, and on day 4, the luminaries are created. How do you square those two without using an argument from silence to add in an extra light source that's not?
Well, I think Genesis 1 and 2 kind of complementary. I think Genesis 2 it kind of expounds on what happened in Genesis 1. Like you have. Like, for example, you can have a story where the first time around someone gives just a very generic overview, right?
Yeah.
And then afterwards they would give a more detailed account of what happened in that first.
Interesting.
And that's not a contradiction, that's just an elaboration.
It's not a contradiction, but it's also not a necessary reading. You can also take Genesis 2 as being day 8 and beyond.
Yeah, you could. I think one of the problems with the creation story is it does leave too much open to interpretation.
It does leave quite a bit open to interpretation, but I think looking at it in the ancient Near Eastern context, where they would have seen it as a framework order, not a chronological order, helps. So think of it this way. Day 1, light is created. Day 4, the luminaries are created. Day 7, God rests. So there's an inherent, let me finish the rest. Day 2, the sea and sky are created. Day 5, the sea and sky animals are created. Day 3, the land and vegetation are created. Day 6, land animals are created. So there's a pattern here. You've seen a menorah, right?
Yes, I have.
So you know that candle 1 and 7 are connected at the bottom, and candles 2 and 6 are connected at the bottom, 3 and 5, and then 4 is a big giant one in the middle. That is describing this same connection. That's actually why the Jews use the menorah, is to describe this connection. Yes. It's ingrained into it.
Yeah. I had to close my background app. Someone was telling me on Twitter that we can do things to be saved and stay saved. Like, oh. I just gotta close this. It's gonna get me frustrated.
So going on, why do I look at it that way? Well, compare Genesis 1 to Jeremiah 4. This is my proof text for understanding it in the ancient Near Eastern context.
I'm just gonna open Jeremiah 4 on my internet for a second.
While you do, I will pull up the specific phrases here.
I've got it in front of me.
So just to make it short and dirty, what I'm getting at is Jeremiah tells Judah that it is formless and void. That is those same words as Genesis. tohu
Yes.
and bohu.
Oh, that's the Hebrew.
Yeah, that's the Hebrew both used in Genesis 1 and Jeremiah 4. And then what proceeds right after? There's no man to work the field, no birds of the air, or vegetation of the ground. And you
Are
can
sure
see
it's
it there.
Jeremiah 4?
Yeah.
What verses are you looking at?
I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it's the same phrase, tohu and bohu. Formless and void. So what that shows is that, first of all, obviously Jeremiah, coming long after Moses died, would have been aware of Genesis 1. And what he's doing is he's describing the unproductiveness of the earth.
Well,
of that area.
We both know, obviously I would hope you would know, that the Bible is not chronologically arranged.
Yes, that is true. But Genesis 1...
They say that actually Job may have been actually before...
Oh yeah, Job is definitely the oldest, way before Moses' time.
And we know for certain that Job had references to dinosaurs and sea creatures, like Behemoth was a dinosaur, so as far as we know, and I'm pretty sure that the Loch Ness monster, what's the one that's called in
the Leviathan?
I think, the Book of Job, I think, is by far and away the oldest book in the Old Testament.
It is definitely the oldest. I don't know if I agree that it's a classical dinosaur like that, and I don't know if we even have to accept that there were actual dinosaurs there in front of Job. God could have given Job a vision of a dinosaur.
Behemoth kind of looks. The description of Behemoth seems like it would be a dinosaur.
The tail moveth like the cedar. It definitely seems like that part of it is a dinosaur, but I just don't hold to it that is God literally saying, behemoths are in your world, behold it. He says behold, and that can be a vision, and it doesn't, it's not a necessary reading of the text to say that Job would have known. What
was the sea creature name that he talked about?
Leviathan.
Leviathan, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which almost seems like just that, or like it actually sounds close to like something that we like in folklore, like the Loch Ness monster.
A little bit of a sidetrack here, but you know how Muslims say that Islam has scientific miracles and that they were seriously debunked? I think Job is our best example of actual scientific miracles being in the Bible. So get this. Back in the ancient times, so first of all, I think that the Leviathan actually describes a whale, and that Job was writing down what they visually saw.
But Job said that.
Well, let me finish. Job thought that the blow spout was the smoke coming from its nostrils. That's what Job wrote. If God said mist coming from the nostrils, that might not have translated as well to Job. So he would have given him the word smoke, because that was their understanding of what whales were. No one can take down a whale. Nothing pierces its hide.
Joe made the pretty good indication too that nothing would be able to destroy it or kill it. I mean, we can definitely kill a whale.
But hyperbole also exists in the Bible as well.
Yeah, that's true, and I think what's one of the problems with the language of the time is in Hebrew. Sometimes from the English to the translation, it's hard to us to tell what is exaggerated, what's figurative, what's literal. It's hard to discern.
Or what's colloquial and what's literal.
And the thing is, I've said to people like this, I said, 2,000 years from now, people who read about stuff that we talked about or read or books or whatever are going to think that, what the heck was going on back then?
They'll think there was a real skibbity toilet somewhere.
Exactly. They're going to TikTok, what is this crap?
There was a time when everyone just spent their whole day staring at a clock. Wow.
Or people who are just making ridiculous videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
I remember I think one time one lady with TikToks said that a guy asked him I think it was about something she was illegally parked. He's like, don't talk to women. I'm like, do not talk to women. You're like over 50% of the population. It's kind of hard to get along with that 50% of the
Yeah,
population.
yeah, exactly,
I
exactly.
mean, but these would be the first people who would bitch if their car broke down and the guy was there.
You know,
Ah,
Job also talks about the springs in the sea, which we didn't understand for a long time.
yeah.
That's amazing. Just knowing that the water flows into the sea from under the earth like that.
Mm,
That's something that we didn't understand until I think the 1800s. Early 1900s.
yeah.
That's some impressive stuff. Well, anyway, the reason I brought all that up is to basically just to say that Genesis 1 or Jeremiah 4 is indicating that that tohu and bohu means something is unproductive, or what Sam Walton says. Oh my
Well,
gosh,
the
what's
earth being
the line?
formless and void would be mean equal being unproductive.
Exactly,
Okay.
or what welter and waste. That's what scholar John Walton calls it, welter and waste. It's not that there's literally just like a blob of water dangling in space that
Yeah.
God just said,
But here's the thing that
world.
I think that here's the thing that I think is difficult for young Earth creationists, myself included, is that because Genesis 1 says that the Earth was formless and void before it was created as we know it. So the question is, how long was the world formless and void? Nobody knows.
Well, that is definitely a problem for young Earth creationists. Oh, I forgot to go over my history. I grew up as a young
At
Earth
least I'm honest
creationist.
about my own position.
Yes, that's intellectual honesty. I love it. I grew up as a young Earth creationist. I was a big fan of Kent Hovind as a kid, but that was also when I was going to school and I learned evolution live. And I was, near the end of that, I was like, this dude doesn't really do a good job describing it.
Ken Hovind, come on, even as far as young Earth creationists go, Ken Hovind is definitely not our best.
Yeah, no, he's scratching the bottom of the barrel there.
I think Ken Ham is way better than that guy.
Yeah, he's definitely better. But anyway, that Hebrew word bara in Genesis 1.
That whole tax evasion thing for Ken Hovind didn't really pan out for him that well either. Though.
That's what one thing I like him for.
Really? You know that's like literally against the teaching of Jesus.
I'm joking.
Okay. Okay, you got me for a second, but I'm really gullible when I'm tired.
A lot of my history is also I'm politically a rightist anarchist. So
What does that even mean?
basically, it means that I hold to how do I put it? I hold to the morality of the right generally, 99% of the time, and then as far as the role of the government goes, I am an anarchist. Now, what I mean by that is that I as a Christian anarchist, I hope for a pre-First Samuel 8 government.
Can you just tell me what it is? I don't have that in front of me.
First Samuel 8 is when the people of Israel went to Samuel and said, we want a king like the nations around us. Because at the time, they had the system of judges. So
Right.
God would appoint, God was the literal king. The Ark of the Covenant was his literal throne.
It grieved the heart of God to know that they wanted what the other nations wanted.
Yeah, to the point where when Samuel came to them and said, Lord, came to God and said, Lord, they've rejected me. God said, no, they've rejected me. So you tell them they can have their king, but here are all the terrible, awful, horrible things that are going to happen. And then the cherry on top is God says, they will cry out to me and I will not hear them.
Yeah, I mean, God's. It's kind of like, the old expression goes, "You've made your bed, you have to live in it now."
Exactly. And so he told them exactly what would happen.
You can't live in your bed and say, "Oh wait, I don't want this bed anymore." No, it doesn't work like that.
Exactly. So I want to go back to the old system where it was also described in the same book that everyone did as they pleased in Israel. And that was considered
before the flood.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's my position. So when you hear me make extremist libertarian content like that, just know that that's where that comes from.
Well, I usually don't. I don't. Even if I might think it's a little bit extreme, I probably won't say. This guy's being extreme.
No, there's other things I'll say that'll make you think that. It's okay.
To some degree, or another, every position is extreme and axiomatically.
Yeah,
Because
at least some way.
Well, most positions are either axiomatically true or not.
Exactly.
So,
So pulling back to the main topic that we came here for, I would like to move on to Genesis 2.
sure.
So the same words in Genesis 2:4, the same word in Hebrew is the same word that's used elsewhere in the Old Testament. These are the generations of Moses. These are the generations of, it's all over the genealogy portion.
Like little lineage and genealogy and stuff.
Yeah. This always, every single usage in the Bible, it always comes back as introducing what came after that person.
Right.
So when Genesis 2 uses that, it's referencing Genesis 1. These are the things that came after Genesis 1. So that's why I don't think that Genesis 2 is a retelling of Genesis 1, because it literally uses the word of this is what comes after. Meaning, to me, I see it as like a chapter marker. This is day 8 of creation. So how do I square this? This means that male and female, man and woman, male and female, were decided before Adam even existed. That's the first thing that comes to mind, which immediately tells me that there's something where humans existed before Adam. So the way that scholars like Joshua John Van Ee end up describing this are male and female were decided before Adam. God places a man and woman in the garden who will act as his first high priest and high priestess. The text does not indicate that the earth was perfect in the garden. There are people on the earth who died before Adam and Eve. And the reason I take this is there's 2 phrases that are used. I don't remember the exact verses, but God tells humanity to subdue the earth. That word subdue in Hebrew, very harsh. It means subjugation. It means warfare. Yeah. Same thing with the word dominion when God gives us dominion over the animals in Genesis 9. Where
the thing is, I think dominion was already established. I think it was just being described in Genesis 9.
I agree. It's a restatement, which also means that dominion is not the first time humans were allowed to eat meat. Mm. Because humans would have been allowed to eat meat before then, that is not the first time humans were commanded to eat meat. We were allowed to do so beforehand, which again indicates that there was physical bodily death before the fall. Now, how do I square that with Adam and Eve's immortality, though? Because the Bible's pretty explicit about that. The death before the garden, death entering through Adam, God never curses Adam and Eve directly. He curses the ground and cuts them off from the tree of life. What this implies... Now this is more personal, though I've heard other theistic evolutionists say the same, that the tree of life is what gave them immortality. That's what made them live forever, the ability to continually eat from the tree of life. And that being cut off from the tree of life is what cut them off from immortality. I also square this with pretty cleanly with the generations having shorter and shorter and shorter lives over many years, over many generations, because of epigenetics. If you understand how epigenetics works, a behavior causes genetic changes, and ending that behavior can reverse those genetic changes. So my favorite example of this is smoking addiction. If you get a severe smoking addiction, like a pack a day sort of thing, your kids, even if they don't smoke, will have all of you will get a genetic marker. Epigenetics occurs, your body adapts, your behavior adapts, and the epigenetics cause changes to your DNA, and that translates to your children. Your epigenetic changes translate to your children. So if you are a cigarette addict, a tobacco addict, nicotine, whatever you want to use, that will show in your DNA for the next 3 to 4 generations.
Really?
Yeah, so like if you have a smoking addiction and your next 3 generations of kids don't, then your 4th generation of kid, when they try to smoke, they won't immediately be hooked. But their parents, if they were to try to smoke, they would immediately be hooked because that they're genetically predisposed to the addiction. And there's wonderful scholastic articles about that. So this is the way epigenetic changes work: is the behavior dictates the genetic change. This is part of why I believe in evolution, because what happens is, so let's say you have one species. Let's say it's actually, you know what? Let's make it humans. So let's say back when the species humans was just Homo.
Mm.
So
when are we talking, and how long ago you figured that was?
that would be maybe 140,000 years ago to 200,000 years ago, around that range. So all humans would have been the same.
How can you know that we've been around for that long?
The geologic record. The geologic record makes it pretty clear that we've been around that long.
Fossil records?
Also geologic, but yeah, fossil records.
So you're going with radiometric dating.
Yeah, normally radiometric, not carbon dating. It's only good for about 24,000, 25,000 years before all the carbon 14.
I also struggle with. How do we know that we can trust something to infer that far back into the past?
Well, it's just math. That's all dating is. It's just math.
I know, but I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and I'm open to admitting it. But I have this it's a biased assumption for sure, and possibly even an argument from incredulity. And I grant it could be that, but I just have a very hard time believing that we can infer that far into the past.
Well, the way that we infer it is we know this rate of decay of radioactive particles. That's why we know.
If I was to play devil's advocate, can we be certain that the conditions of the world and life that we have today are the same as they would be this far long ago? Can we know that?
It's not the sort of thing that's affected by the literal constants of the universe would have to change.
Yeah, but a global flood would be a constant that's changed.
No. And by cosmic constant, I mean like alpha.
That would be a global flood. Would be that?
No, it's not. That's not a global constant. That's a physical condition. The global the universal constants are mathematical features of the universe as a whole.
Wouldn't the constants of a global flood pretty much turn everything on its own?
There's nothing about a global flood that has anything to do with the mathematical constants in any way whatsoever. The constants of the universe are part of science itself.
I would agree with that.
It's part of math. It's not even like debatable.
I'm just not understanding how you're explaining it.
One sec. Okay, so the physical constants of the universe are mathematical facts about the universe. So, for example, the Planck constant, the electric constant, the elementary charge E. These are parts of how the math of the universe works. We've calculated them, the constants. The speed of light is not going to be affected by a global flood. The gravitational constant, capital G in scientific math, that's not got anything to do with a global flood. The gravitational constant, if you have your mass and you have your distance and you eliminate other confounding factors and you know the rate of attraction between two things, you can always know what capital G is. You can calculate it out by isolating things. That's what the constants are. There's some mathematical part of the universe that is always true no matter where you are, no matter the conditions. That's what I mean when I say a constant. It's a part of physics and math. So what I mean by that is this is how the universe is fine-tuned. This is what God has used to fine-tune the universe, is the constants. Let's think of it this way. If you were to take a ruler a light year long and equate that ruler to the constant of alpha, if that ruler was an inch shorter or an inch longer, life wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, I mean,
the physics and math wouldn't work.
This is the thing I didn't get a chance to elaborate further on with Aaron either. Is that Aaron actually said in a video he sent me on YouTube that God is actually not only improbable but impossible, logical. I'm like, what? I mean, look at the gravitational force for just one. Like, the gravitational force is like, it's not just kind of where it needs to be. No, the gravitational force is exactly where it needs to be for the conditions of life. It's not. It's like, Turek made this in one of his presentations. I said, he said, I know like the gravity is then measured by inches, but just to give you an example by way of inference, so you can get an idea of what he's talking about. He said, if you were to remove the gravitational force an infinitesimal degree from one side to the other, life as we know it wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
Like, we're talking about less than what you can see between my two fingers.
And the thing that you're talking about, that is capital G. That's a constant. That's That's what I mean. But that's what I meant when I said a constant.
If you just take, and that's only gravity. There's many more things we can get into that would infer that life without design is stupid. Actually, not just it's insane.
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about when I say we can trust radiocarbon dating, because we know the mathematical constants. So because of the way that radioactive particles decay, we know it takes X amount of time for a specific mass of particles to reduce. The way we know that is we've done the experiments. We've taken, if I remember right, it's uranium-131 and watched it decay to plutonium, and it took X mass, Y amount of time to decay. And so we know what the half-life length is of those particles. Therefore, when you see the uranium and in the ground, and you know where it is, and you know that you found a fossil in that area, you know that you can take the amount of radioactive radioactive material still left inside of that rock or fossil, or the rock that surrounded the fossil, etc. And you can do the math all the way back to figure out exactly how old that rock is. Okay. That's how it works. So that's why we know that works. It's the same thing with radiocarbon dating. It's more granularly accurate, but it's only accurate within a certain time period. This is why when people do stupid crap like try to carbon date fossils of dinosaurs that are millions of years old or whatever, they get ridiculous dates. It was 30,000 years ago. Bruh, there's no carbon-14 left in that thing. It's literally taking an almost non-existent amount of carbon-14 and trying to back that up. They don't even have the ability to quantify how much carbon-14 is in it, let alone how much was added in it at the end. So that's why that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how I agree with the time frame. But I forgot what I was getting at on that. I forgot why I brought it up. The global flood. So I don't just believe it was one global flood. I believe it was several global floods that were semi-local.
How do you figure?
Well, they would have come from multiple sources. They rained from the sky. It broke out from the earth. And it would have also included glacial melt, because this was literally the end of the Ice Age, and we have math to back that up. This is why many, many, many cultures have stories that are similar to the global flood of Noah. This is how they square it with the locations they have. Now, I could be wrong on this. I'll be 100% honest. I could be wrong on it. There could have been just a single global flood. However, there's
a lot of things I think we could be wrong about. I mean, there's always tertiary issues that we could always be wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So the important thing that we have to get right is that Jesus is Lord of life and that He's the Savior of the
course.
world. Yeah.
Of course.
Everything else on top of that is what, of course, it's
extra.
It's extra. Yeah, exactly. So
Long as you're not trying to bogart power from God, it's all
no,
extra.
I mean, and of course, and I'll just say it too that we have to accept that Jesus Christ is God Almighty.
Of course, absolutely,
I
and
mean,
I don't deny that
almost
on any
every
regard.
false religion will deny that Jesus is God, of course.
Yeah. Except for the only other one that is willing to say it also says everyone is God. So who
Yeah,
cares?
well, universalism doesn't work because if I'm God and you're God, and like there's just no hierarchy, and that doesn't work either.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
Now I do believe that the hierarchy is us and then God, and that's
yes,
it.
I agree.
That's
And then we and then we and
that's
then
why
we
I'm
have
an
subject.
anarchist.
The other thing is I don't understand is that people who are would cry foul and scream bloody murder about the death of like say if I killed a dog. No, of course I'm not. It's hypothetical. I love dogs. But I'm just saying there
Yeah.
are people who hypothetically, if I were to kill a dog, would be more outraged about that than someone taking life of from the unborn a woman's unborn child. And I'm like,
Yep.
it's a bit of a disconnect here, people. Like, yeah, you should be outraged that I'm killing a dog, but you should be more outraged about the life of a unborn child.
Well, they try to hyper intellectualize it, and they go too far. They go way too far. There's a certain degree of, maybe if the life of the mother is at definite risk, it's at least a choice between two evils you have to make.
Yeah, but that's usually almost like 99.9% of the time that's not the case.
Yeah, that would have to be like a high fallopian ectopic pregnancy or something crazy like that.
Intellectual dishonesty that you get from people like, what about women who are pregnant because of rape or molestation or abuse? We're talking.
What'd the baby do?
Yeah, but we're talking about that's also one issue. But the other issue is we're talking about less than 1 to 2% of all
Exactly.
pregnancies.
Exactly.
98 to 99% of pregnancies happen as a result of consensual sex.
Well, people just want to murder.
Exactly.
These people deny it, but they're ball worshippers.
I debated a pro-choice advocate earlier today, and it's on my YouTube channel now. And he was saying it's okay to kill a fetus. I'm like, you just literally said it's okay to kill a baby. No,
I just remembered why I brought up the dating. It was because of the history of humanity.
Oh yeah, okay.
So go back far enough, and you don't see any subdivisions of Homo. You just have one species of human, roughly, give or take.
Okay.
Now, I might be wrong about that, but I'm just oversimplifying for the sake of the conversation.
Yeah, but do you believe that humans evolved from lower life forms?
I do.
Okay.
However, I don't consider them
no
lower.
evidence for that, though. Not that I know of.
Well, the existence of lower life forms is the evidence.
Yeah, but that you're making.
So what do you consider a lower life form? Do you consider chimpanzees a lower life form?
I would consider anything that's not us in the evolutionary chain a lower life form.
Okay, I wouldn't. Every creature that is alive today had equal amount of time to evolve as we have, because it's alive today. So the way it works, the way that evolution actually works, according to the scholarly research, is that there's no offspring of a horse that won't be a horse.
Right.
There's no offspring of a human that won't be a human. Even for billions of years. No matter how crazy long things go, things don't change. Like, you're not going to wake up one day and all of a sudden... actually, you know what? I'll put it this way. You know what a diapsid is and a synapsid is?
I know what a synapse is. I don't know what a diapsid is.
So we're synapsids. Birds are diapsids. It literally just means you have one hole in your skull or two holes in your skull. If you want me to grossly oversimplify, it's a taxonomic thing that they use for identifying what lineage a creature is from. There are no offspring of synapsids that are anything but synapsids. That goes all the way back to several million years. Like, man, I can't even remember the name of the animal. That's how millions of years it's been. Oh man, I'm just gonna look it up. It was another creature that you find their fossils everywhere. There's a picture of it.
But my contention is that commonality of genetic structure only proves
There we go.
commonality.
Dimetrodon.
Pardon?
Dimetrodon, that's the one. So Dimetrodon is one of the first synapsids that ever exist. It was not a mammal. It was not an amphibian. It was not a dinosaur. It was not anything else like that. The only similarity that creature has to us is it is a synapsid. This species is one of the species in the, to make things easier for your taste, I'll use the word purported. The purported taxonomic line from human into history.
As I said with my debate on with Jackson Weed on Wednesday, I'm not a scientist, but if you simplify it, I do understand scientific concepts and principles.
Good. So
and I'm very logical, but I hope you know that by now.
Yeah, you actually are. You've been pretty awesome. So Dimetrodon, it was a synapsid. That's its clade. Its phylum was Chordata, so it has a spinal cord.
Okay.
There are no descendants of vertebrates that don't have a vertebra. There's no descendants of synapsids that aren't synapsids. Now, what happens is, let's say it's only Dimetrodons in the world, because that was pretty much damn near true in the past. They end up going to two different locations that differ extremely heavily in environment. In order to adapt to that environment, they still have the same body plan. They change their behavior. Behavior change begets epigenetic change, which means their offspring have slightly the offspring of Dimetrodons in X environment have different DNA, slightly different, admittedly, different DNA from Dimetrodons in Y location and Z location, etc., etc. The more different environments, the more different the creature. Well, all it is these behavioral adaptations beget genetic adaptations. Genetic adaptations beget physical adaptations. So, longer teeth, heavier arms, more durable claws, the things that wouldn't be necessary in one area. So, for example, if they spend a lot of time around the water, and you can also see this in humans, longer webs between the fingers.
Okay. Well, can I just say one thing, just because it reminds me of something you asked earlier about my journey, and
oh yeah.
Well, because it's kind of important for this conversation too. It's relevant, I should say. I've always been the person I've never been a person that's accepted things just because other people do it. I've always questioned.
Yeah, no problem.
It has to make sense to me. If something doesn't make sense to me, I won't accept it. Even if you're my own spouse, if you say something to me that doesn't make sense to me, I won't accept it.
Yeah, no problem. And that's what I want to do. I want to try to compact this in a way that makes more sense. I don't even want you to accept it. I just want to be able to describe it to you accurately.
No,
I was talking to you in the early, before the podcast started about how I want to help people steel man the things that they're against.
Yeah.
As much as possible.
And if you can steel man the thing that you're against, and you'll be like, you'll be not only a formidable debater, but an unbeatable debater.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you'll notice if you look at
most people don't know how to defend the philosophy of their own position. Most people can't justify their own position. Most people don't even know that they have a position in philosophy that needs justification to begin with.
Or they know when they deny it.
Yeah, but I honestly don't. I honestly don't think people. I don't think most people even think about their own philosophy for the most part.
Nope. Most people don't even know that most of their ideas aren't even theirs. They come from other people.
I was just talking about this. I've been talking with this number of people the last week or so. Is that most people accept what a combination of what they've been taught as kids and what the cultural says is the way to be.
Yep, that's very true. That's very true.
And it's unquestioned. Which the thing is, the irony about that is it's what blind faith.
Yeah, and that's hilarious because they accuse us of that, and we're literally, you're blessed for having blind faith, but we're not commanded to have blind faith.
No,
as Christians.
Actually, I think blind faith is a really bad way to be.
it's good to have the faith before you understand if it's the right thing.
Yeah, I
You
agree
are
with you.
blessed for that, but you are not supposed to stay there. You're not supposed to, if something comes by that confirms a belief that you're blessed for having, that's one thing. But well, anyway, it's ridiculous. But so here's the continuation of the example I was using. If you look at the taxonomy of creatures from the Permian era, you'll notice that they're missing a few things that we have. Now, they still have family, subfamily, and genus, and they still have domain, kingdom, and phylum, but all that stuff in between, group, and I forget the other ones. Group, well, anyway, those interstitial ones, they're not there because they hadn't formed yet. So what do I mean by that? I'll put it this way: you and I and our dogs and the chimpanzees, we're still synapsids. We're all synapsids. We all had a common ancestor in the past who was a synapsid. That's the condition. We got there by differences in adaptation. That's what the position is. So the adaptations, so like I was saying, so it's environment change, then behavioral adaptation, then epigenetic change, then physical adaptation. Then that continues on with multiple different sub environments so you adapt and you're able to conquer your own environment more. And then you reach the edges of your environment and you enter new environments. So you go from an icy tundra to a forested tundra. And all of a sudden your offspring start getting lighter and longer limbs and longer claws and shorter teeth. And so that what happens is that compiles, and the epigenetic changes change the base DNA of the animal so much that eventually they cannot breed. The best examples we have of this are actually animals that we have today. So donkeys and horses cannot interbreed. Well, they can interbreed. They can't interbreed fertilely.
Let me ask you a question, because I hold this position, and so far I haven't heard a good rebuttal to it, which is this position which is there's obviously a different species of like the same kind, right? There's different kinds of flies, different kinds of dogs. No one in the right mind would obviously deny that, but I've never seen a species become another one over time. I've never seen. I mean, and I've heard evolution doesn't disagree with that, but I've heard but I don't see any kind of this linkage in the evolutionary change. I don't see any evidence of that. I always see everything producing after its own kind, just as the Bible says in Genesis. I don't see any
evolution is things producing after their own kind exclusively.
Okay, so but the thing is, I don't see this, but I also don't see this lower functioning creatures becoming something more evolved either.
That takes a lot of time, a lot of different environmental changes over time.
Yeah,
you would not be able to capture that within a lifetime.
Just say you're just accepting that on faith. To play devil's advocate. I'm not saying
I don't agree.
I'm just playing.
I don't agree because of the paleontological evidence of the locations where animals have been found, the environmental factors of those locations they were found. By analyzing things like amber bubbles. And you watched, I'm assuming you've watched Jurassic Park, right?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so you know how they got...
I did a project for that movie in English media.
Okay. So you know how the old man has a piece of amber with a mosquito stuck in it, and they got the dinosaur blood out of that amber. Well, there's also that's kind of related to a real thing. Now, you're not going to be doing that with dinosaur blood, but you can do that with air bubbles. And when you know an air bubble, you know what the environment was like because you know the humidity, you know the oxygen nitrogen comparison, and other factors. You can derive all that from the content of those bubbles. So by doing that, we know what certain environments were like. We know if they would have been extremely high temperature. We know what sort of plants would have been nearby. We would have known if they would have been high humidity, low humidity. So basically, by interacting with all these different environments, they end up becoming more like that environment. So take whales, for example.
Are other people watching this, or is it just you and I right now?
I don't do it live. I record.
Okay, and then it goes, okay.
Yeah, I post it on YouTube and a few other platforms.
That's cool, yeah. I'm finding StreamYard a very effective platform for hosting and then uploading.
Nice. I haven't used StreamYard yet.
I use it for both my debate with Steve and with Jackson. And my video call with Aaron, sorry.
Nice.
Apparently, I don't know why I care. It was like, apparently he doesn't like it when people mispronounce his name.
Yeah.
Aaron,
that's a respect.
If you get pissed off about mispronouncing your name, that's indicative of other problems.
Yeah. Well, let's see here. My favorite example here is whales.
Okay.
So most young Earth creationists hate when evolutionists bring up whales, because they're like, oh, there's no way that a land animal could have become an aquatic animal and lost its limbs. That makes absolutely no sense. But
I would agree with that.
I know you would, but I'm gonna use the example anyway because I'm a bastard like that.
Okay. Well, you said about me.
So basically, there was originally the class of animal called cetids. So these were quadrupedal land animals that are the purported ancestors of whales. Mm-hmm. And what happened is they got closer and closer to shores from their environment. their original environment would have been plains animals, and they would have been they would have been runners and grazers and walkers, and they would have had four limbs. And then their environment would have become more aquatic. Now, whether that's because they adapted to their environment, expanded to the edges of it, and then the ones that approach those edges adapt to their new environments, because you know how biomes work. At the edge of one environment, you find more environments. At a certain point, it's not a tundra anymore. It's now a forest or a jungle or whatever. You're not going to find a tundra next to a jungle, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you travel to warmer climates, you travel to colder climates. Well, cetids traveled to more aquatic environments. And so what did that cause? They already had slightly elongated faces when they were cetids. Well, their faces got even longer, and their jaws got lower because and their nostrils got higher, because it's easier when you're in an aquatic area to use your mouth under the water when you can still breathe and your nose isn't near it. And then you get webbed feet, you get shorter limbs because you need a more streamlined form in order to swim more efficiently. They would have began to go into the water. They would have began to use the water more, and eventually they would have gone into the water so often that they adapt away from their usefulness on land to their usefulness in the water. It's more of the usage of the terms higher and lower organism are not really useful in the term of evolution. Now, maybe if you're talking about the entire sequence from bacteria and archaea up to eukaryota and Homo sapiens.
I just was reading in the last email I got from Aaron said out everything I said was demonstrably stupid and hateful and wrong.
Funny. What a dick.
I'm such a hateful person, aren't I?
Yeah, you're a real hater.
Oh, I know. I can't hide it. I'm sorry.
That's why you came on the I Hate the Antichrist podcast, because you're a hater.
In that case, I guess I am. I guess if we have to
nothing better to hate.
I don't think I'm hateful in the way that Aaron thinks I'm hateful, though.
No.
Actually, I think it's obviously, as we both know from Aaron, it's just a pure projection.
Yeah, he's a less than savory individual. But anyway, you don't get worse or better over time. Whether you might get smaller, you might get larger, you might get shorter limbs, you might get larger limbs. It all depends on the epigenetic changes over significant amounts of time. So eventually, species groups stop being able to interbreed. Take donkeys and horses, for example. Horses, they're more about small packs and high speed to get away. So they would have not been near donkeys, which were more about group tactics and using violence in return to stop predators. Because, if you've ever seen a donkey kick somebody, whoo! Now, horse kicks still ain't nothing to shake a stick at, but they will run from you before kicking you, normally, a horse will, if they can. A donkey, they're more likely to kick you than to run away. It's just a fact of what they do. That's the adaptation I'm talking about. So you'll notice that donkeys and horses look fairly similar, and they can produce infertile offspring. That's because they have diverged enough that their DNA, they can intermingle, but that interstitial organism is not going to be able to breed. And so if more adaptation happened over time that made horses and donkeys even more different, eventually you're going to have donkeys and horses not able to create mules anymore. That's how it works. So eventually, different groups that adapt in different ways in different environments stop being able to interact, and you lose those interstitial organisms that are in between, for example, whales and other cetids. Whales go super deep under the water, way deeper than dolphins do. Dolphins have a way lower or a way higher max depth, way lower max depth than whales do, and that's why whales got so huge. It's to resist those insane pressures. It's the same way and there's food down there, so they're willing to go for it. So, while 500 generations ago, whales might not have been able to go as deep as they can today, or maybe several thousand generations ago. I'm not doing the math. I'm more just trying to get the concept out. But basically, the idea is that environmental change. So you conquer an environment, or you max out your capability in an environment, and you start interacting with nearby different environments. That produces a behavioral change. That produces an epigenetic change. That produces a physical change. And then enough of those epigenetic and physical changes happen that you stop interacting with your ancestors from the original environment, and you start only interacting with the group of your species that's within your environment and behavior group as well. So your lineage ends up deviating, and your people look more similar, and all the difference between macroevolution and microevolution is the number of these changes that take place. When they stack up more and 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 more, you end up coming up with less and less compatible organisms genetically and physically. So that's the purported way it works. So you're not going to see like a horse become you'll see a horse become a super horse, but you're not going to see a horse become a donkey. And neither one is higher nor lower than the other. You might see a horse become a pygmy horse if they go into an environment, or, this is why I like humans, we breed them until they're like that. I mean, look how sweet beets are. Have you ever just bitten into a beet before directly? They're kind of gross, but they're extremely sweet. Well, 200 years ago, nowhere near as sweet. We accelerated the evolution there towards sweetness. We introduced human selection onto natural selection. That's the way it works. That's the way human genetics or human genetic changes to creatures work. That's literally genetic modification. So what does this mean at the end of the day? This basically just means that if you accept adaptation, that one species can change its physical traits in a few ways then you have to accept how that happened, which that happens through genetic changes. Genetic changes, you have to accept that those are driven by behavioral changes. Behavioral changes, you have to accept that those are driven by environmental changes. And environmental changes, I mean, you have to accept that those are caused by God. You have to accept that, the way that God ordered the world is that when you have maximized your efficiency in a region, you will spread over that entire region. That is the way God has ordered the dominion of creatures over an area. So,
sorry, I'm sure this will go well. I just called Aaron a fool per Proverbs 1:7, Psalm 14:1 in an email.
Oh man. Oh man.
I'm just bringing up the Bible. I'm just delivering the mail, so.
I would call him a rip-off Shang Tsung.
What does that mean? You said that in our email.
Oh, you ever play Mortal Kombat? He looks like a super fat trench coat atheist version of the main bad guy from that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Aaron, the thing I can't stand about him is he has absolutely zero humility.
No, he has none. And my favorite thing is he came from New Age.
He said he came from Mormon. I didn't know he came from New Age. He didn't tell me that anyway.
Wait, you said he came from what?
He said he came from a Mormon background.
Oh, he might have, but he was New Age for a while. He was trying to get people to have
disputing that. I'm just saying it never
spiritual
came up
experiences and stuff like that.
It never came up on our show with him anyway.
Yeah. He hit. Maybe it's not specifically New Age, but it was like a new wave spiritualism thing. He could make. He said he could make Christians see Jesus, and he could make Mormons see Joseph Smith, and he could make Hindus see Krishna and stuff like that. Yeah. Well, I mean, he would do it through drugs and stuff, from my understanding. Now, I might be wrong about that. It might be more of a meditation thing.
He was doing a little bit of cannabis back in the day, but he grew up in the 70s in SoCal, so I pretty much everyone was back then, so I can't pin that on him alone. So
I might be a little bit factually wrong there, but my understanding is that he, after being a Mormon, started doing this whole spiritualism thing, and that one of the things that made him go from spiritualism to atheism was that the mystical experiences that he witnessed people have through meditation or whatever he was having them do, that they would only ever see the thing that was from their culture. What's funny about this is this actually contradicts near-death experiences.
Well, for sure it does.
And near-death experiences are overwhelmingly Christian, even in other nations, if they even have them.
Yeah, here's the thing I don't understand. I literally saw an atheist post this on Twitter a day or two ago. I think it was yesterday. Anyways, doesn't really matter. Really recently, anyways. He said that, if you see an angel and you don't question that you might be having a hallucination or you might be, or something else, then your faculties aren't working well. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like you guys are literally always asking for proof and evidence, and then an angel shows up, and then you're going to dismiss the angel. I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was
I'm
not
pretty
Christopher
sure if
Hitchens,
an atheist met an angel, I don't think they're going to be like, I wonder if I'm seeing what I'm seeing.
I forget what atheist exactly it was. Yeah. Maybe it was Richard Dawkins.
Records, I think every single time someone sees an angel, like...
Yeah, and then the first thing the angel says, "No, hey, calm down, chill out, it's all right. I have good news, not bad news. It's okay. Don't be afraid."
I'm just saying what the atheist thinks of what happened with their encounter with an angel wouldn't be the same as what I'm sure.
But they would just rationalize it to be a hallucination afterwards. I mean, I think that was what happened in the conversation with Richard Dawkins. I think it was.
They would be. I don't think they would say a word because they knew they would. Like, you see an angel, okay, you're excommunicated.
Excommunicated from the atheist church.
Yeah.
You picked up filthy.
Almost by every standard of the definition, atheism fits the definition of a religion.
Oh yeah, including having a hierarchical structure with their lead apologists
Yeah,
and
I
basically
mean, they have
pastors at the
debates, they have
top.
apologists, they have their own gatherings, they have their own conventions. Like the only thing it's not is,
They have a temple, the Smithsonian.
but the only thing I'm not sure they get is a tax write-off. That I don't know.
That's
So,
the only thing they're missing is the tax write-off.
yeah, but I'm sure it's in the works. I'm sure there are people who work at
Oh,
government.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And once they get that, they can't bitch about anything anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they
yeah,
will,
exactly.
but I mean, they can't do it legitimately.
Mm-hmm. It's funny.
But they'll still fund it.
So where was I? Where was I?
I don't know. We got sidetracked, I'm sure.
That's fine. I like sidetracks. That's what makes a podcast fun.
That's true. And this is not a debate. This is a cordial conversation between two believers who have just different ideologies, or not ideologies, origin beliefs when it comes to the age of the earth. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. So, what was it? Oh, so basically,
But I don't think you would go as far as to say that a young earth creationist is a science denier, would you?
Depends on the thing we're talking about.
Okay, like I mean,
So
like
I don't like.
I think it's a broad,
I don't like.
I mean, like
blasting
like
a whole.
Aaron will obviously say, like, anyone who denies evolution is a science denier. I'm like, no, I don't deny science. I deny the bad ideas that are purported to be scientific. In my estimation, of course. Anyways,
I have seen young Earth creationists deny evidence and try to reframe that evidence falsely. I've seen that happen. But I wouldn't call that science denialism. Science denialism is going to be like unironic flat earthering. So okay, you know what? I think it'll be easier to describe who I think is a science denialist.
you know, they had that joke floating on around the internet a year or two ago where they're flat Earth there are flat earthers all around the world.
Yeah. On the official Flat Earth Society website, there's a thing that says some number of members all around the globe.
They don't even realize their own language.
So I don't say that all young Earth creationism is anti-science. I think that there's some level of denying some sort of science it has to have for most positions. However,
I think everyone probably had. I mean, we all have our blind spots, and I don't think science.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, atheists deny science.
Being ignorant of your something in your position and denying the evidence put out.
Yes, exactly. So you can deny history as being a science. I've always been the kind of
person that if something makes sense to me, I'll accept it. If something doesn't make sense to me, I won't accept it. I've never been like follow the herd.
Yeah.
I think herd mentality is a horrible philosophy, but unfortunately, that's how most people live.
Yep. I would say the only group of Christians, young Earth creationist style Christians, that I would say definitely deny science would be some of the more extremely conservative, hyper-literal Seventh-day Adventists and independent fundamental Baptists, and basically any Christian group that got their descendants from Ellen G. White, if you know who that is.
No, I don't. Who?
Ellen G. White?
Not familiar, no.
How do I just... she basically was one of the founders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. She's the reason that we have premillennial dispensationalism today. You know, the whole thing where there's the...
Let me ask you a question just kind of off topic, but I'm just... Because, like, obviously it's been something on my mind, the atheists. What do you think drives the anger behind so many atheists?
I'm going to be honest, for a lot of them, it genuinely is they were treated poorly by people in the church. Yeah. There is obviously a level of that's true.
Okay.
It's not all of them. For some of them, it's also that they want to be able to do whatever the hell they want without anybody saying anything about it.
So they want to be their own god. They want to make their own morality.
Yeah, they want to be able to call whatever they want right without having to have
making
people.
your own morality.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I would go so far as saying they want to be their own god because they don't believe in their own god.
No, but I mean,
they don't.
what I mean by they be their own god is they want to call
the arbiter of morality.
Yeah, they want to be the one to call all the other shots. Yeah. That's what I mean by that. Full autonomy, basically.
I actually have a good amount of history on this one. So, I told you earlier, I grew up as a young Earth creationist. I went to the Evangelical Free Church.
And you were influenced initially by Aoeui.
Yeah, exactly.
I honestly, I have to admit that I actually followed his stuff for a bit too. Because I've always, as you can imagine, just knowing me to some degree, that I kind of like watching debates between atheists and Christians. So
yeah,
and Hovind was doing all right for a bit, and then it's like,
well, at a certain point, I really wouldn't even say I deconverted. I just sort of fell out.
yeah,
I was born again. I got baptized by the EVFA.
Yeah.
Or
what do you think
EVFC.
of deistic evolution?
It's basically the same thing as theistic evolution, but there's no
I can't remember
active
the term. What's the
material
difference
there.
between deism and theism again?
Deists think that God doesn't interact with the world. He set up the dominoes and he pushed go, and he's been sitting back and enjoying the show. That's what deists believe.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Deists believe that God set up the dominoes, he knocked the first one over, and he's been sitting back and enjoying the show since.
So he's uninvolved.
Yeah, they think that he's uninvolved, and a lot of them also think he's not personal. That's the big debate between different deists.
I mean, I think the person of Jesus kind of refutes the impersonal thing.
Well, they usually don't subscribe to Christianity, deists.
Okay.
They doubt that.
Well, you can't have an uninvolved God who literally goes to the cross to die for you. That's
exactly.
That's about as personal.
Well, that would make you a
gets.
Theist, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's about as personal as it gets as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So after that, I started getting into spirituality. And I wouldn't say I went as far as complete New Age, but I would say I started, being a little bit New Age. I started getting really heavily into Buddhism and learned a lot about other religions. I've grown in wisdom since then, and I think I've kind of narrowed down what those religions have right and wrong. There's a sense, and this comes from St. Thomas Aquinas, where all the religions have some level of wisdom that's been granted to them that's accurate to the description of reality. So, like, if we're not including the divine in anything, I still believe the yin-yang accurately defines life on this earth. How every good intention has a little bit of darkness and evil to it. Every evil intention has some sort of element of good somewhere deep inside of it.
You think there's, for every good intention, there's always still some element of bad?
Yeah, I do.
Explain that to me.
Social clout is the easiest one to think of.
Like, you can't, you don't think that anything can be done with pure 100% good motives?
Not by us. Maybe by Jesus.
Even with Jesus empowering us, you don't think that anything can be done with pure motives? So, if Jesus,
I think that is still going to be somewhere in the back of your motivations, somewhere. And so, for example, doing a charity event with your church.
This is kind of theoretical.
Maybe, but it jives really, really, really well with what's the word? Oh, you disappeared on me. Oh, there you go. You're back. It jives really, really, really well with total depravity.
Okay, I don't know what happened there.
It's okay. You cut out for a minute. It's whatever.
Yeah, no. Wonders of technology. I'm getting this notification that I'm not able to access mic or cam. Well, I think it's.
Well, it's working.
I think my camera is about as sensitive. My USB port for my camera is about as sensitive as a 90-year-old lady.
So the reason I take to that is actually because of Christian total depravity. I think that idea is getting down to the same sort of thing, where there is.
If you just read one of my posts on Twitter, I pretty much just labeled us as almost totally. I don't know if you saw that one.
Yeah, I did. I liked it.
Okay.
But yeah, it gels really nicely with total depravity.
Yeah.
And it's
so you are reformed.
Yeah, I have a lot of. I have a lot of reformed beliefs. Yes, I would not call myself a Calvinist.
Nor would I. Nor would
I. I would say as far as major denominations go.
Conversation, right?
Yeah, I do affirm complete free will.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have a very nuanced position on a lot of theological stuff. I think free will and
predestination are just paradoxes, though.
Not sure. I haven't come up with my take on that.
I think within predestination, we still have free agency. Is what I mean by.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that. What I would say is your free will is whether you're going to rebel or not. You can choose to not rebel, and when you do, in that moment, that's when God begins the process, either begins or completes the process of spiritual sanctification.
People say, like, well, if you're a Christian, you can just do whatever you want. I'm like,
no, no.
I can't.
I mean, you can if you really want, but you're not being a very good Christian, and you're kind of pissing all over Jesus' grave.
And you're taking serious issues with Paul in Romans 6 and 7.
Exactly.
Shall I go on sinning? No.
Yeah.
I mean, you can.
Exactly.
Like you said, it's a really bad idea.
Yeah, it's pissing on Jesus' grave.
I know. That's exactly. I couldn't put it any more. And I thought I was the blunt one. Wow.
So anyway,
you don't have any issue with me being blunt or whatever. So whatever.
No, not at all. After a while of that spiritualism crap, I ended up getting into a guy called Alan Watts.
I've heard about him. He was pretty famous. He was a philosopher or something like that.
Yeah, he was a multi-religious philosopher who converted from Christianity to some sort of Eastern pantheistic monism sort of position.
I think I remember listening to like a monologue of his like a year or two.
Oh, there's so many of those.
And he's just got the most hard to listen to voice. Like he does not have a voice like he's not a Morgan Freeman kind of deal.
I actually listening to his voice and sleeping to his voice is what I did through like most of my college years.
He doesn't have an engaging voice. Like Morgan Freeman has a calming voice, but he still has a voice like you like to listen to, right?
Yeah, he's not gonna keep you awake or anything. You can definitely sleep to Alan Watts pretty easy. What I noticed is it's fun. What I noticed is while watching his stuff, something would be said, and I agreed with him on a lot of his spiritualism takes, but then all of a sudden I listened to one of his things of how he deconverted from Christianity and took up Buddhism instead, and I heard him. Yeah, Alan Watts, AlanWatts. He grew up Anglican because he's a Britoid. Anyway, he was talking about why he doesn't accept Christianity anymore, and I can't remember exactly what it was he was talking about, but he completely mischaracterized the religion.
Happens.
Never. And it's really similar. It's really similar to the reason a lot of atheists hate Christianity, and it's because of the way Christians frame sin. A lot of Christians harp on sin like rah, 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 finger wag. If you keep doing that, you're going to heck.
If I could show you all the emails and texts and things like I've gotten between all my platforms and emails about like my language.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway,
I can tell people like, well, it's like about correction, right? I can take correction, like, but I used to be like, I don't need someone correcting me about every damn thing I do.
Yeah. I can do that enough for myself.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, you really don't think, like, if I'm a follower of Christ and I have the Holy Spirit of God, like, leading me, that I'm probably not already thinking about the very thing you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's way too many busybodies in the body of Christ.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the problem I'm getting at, is there's a lot of finger wagging that happens from Christians.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're sinning, you're bad. That's not what Christianity, that's not even why Jesus brought up sin. Jesus is the reason we believe in total depravity, because of his position in the Sermon on the Mount is the primary thing.
The only reason
but also,
Jesus would bring up sin is to draw people to himself.
Well, yeah, and the way he achieved that is that the little amount. Jesus talked a lot about sin, but also he said surprisingly little about it, other than just pointing the sin out and saying how bad it is.
Because he was trying to focus on.
The way I like to word it is, pointing out someone's sin is the proof that you need a savior.
Oh yeah.
And that's the point. That's the whole point. Is you're pointing out that you need a savior.
Back in the plank, right?
Exactly. Like there's not a single one of you. Why? You think because you didn't strangle that guy to death on the road the other day? You think you didn't murder him in your heart? Come on, dude.
I actually had a Hebrew. You've heard of the Black Hebrew Israelite cult, right?
Oh my gosh, I hate those guys. Oh my gosh.
I told he's like, well, what about Putin? I'm like, you're comparing yourself to Putin. I know, and honestly, he actually said it to. This is the first guy who's ever told me he's never sinned. He actually told me he's never sinned.
Well, then he hasn't read the Bible. Well, maybe he is a black Israelite who isn't a Christian at all. Then
no, he's not a Christian.
Yeah.
But remember I said, well, there's at least one commandment you're breaking by saying you've never broken anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the thing is, he also told me one time that he called in sick to work because he had appointments. I said, well, that's a lie. Well, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's a lie.
And he said, and according to their religion, they're supposed to not work Sabbath, and he works half days and Saturdays. He said, well, you're breaking the Sabbath. Yeah, but if I didn't do that, then I would lose my job. No, you're moving the goalpost, buddy.
Yeah, well, you then lose your fucking job then, dude.
That entire cult is literally...
Get fired, loser.
Exactly. What's more important, obeying God or your religion, right? I mean,
exactly.
Or your So I mean, Christ literally calls us to die to self, and that may mean losing your job. I mean, I know Turek got fired from a position a number of years ago because of his book against homosexuality.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And I think it was correct, not politically, why homosexuality hurts everyone, and then his employers got rid of that, and he got fired. So much for tolerance, right?
The tolerant left strikes again. It's funny.
I think
that's
tolerant,
a fun rightist joke.
But they're only as tolerant as long as you agree with their narrative. Well, that's not tolerant.
Yeah, exactly.
But if we put that, oh, you call yourself a Christian and you don't agree with me, like, and that's the thing these two people think is like Jesus said to love people, and like, did Jesus condone sin? No, but it's like they got jamming, right? Like, you say like, well, and I hate this one. I really hate this one where people say Jesus never talked about homosexuality in the Gospels.
He doesn't have to.
I know. The other thing is, he also affirmed marriage of a man and woman, and he quoted Genesis 2:24 in Matthew 19. Now, if you're a thinking person, you would actually realize that Jesus is ruling out all other sexual relationships by default.
Yeah, literally. Oh man.
And he's God, so he's also the one who was inspired to Leviticus 18, and Romans 1:9. Romans 1:26-27, and so on and so forth. Like, and then the other thing you're going to have to contend with is what people never do with if they bring up the crap about Jesus not mentioning homosexuality definitively in the New Testament Gospels, is that what about everything that Jesus did say? If you really want to play this game, it's not going to work out well for you.
There's a sense
intellectual dishonesty,
in which...
and I can't stand it.
I don't think it's right for us to harp on people for sins, but it's important to point it out so that they know that they need saved.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's important to do it so that people know they need saved.
Taking Bible out of context. That's all.
Me too. Me
Okay.
too. But there, people need to know that they need saved. That what they're doing is harmful.
The only way
Even
that
if
know
the
that
only
is we
person they're
actually have to
harming
tell them that they're a
themselves.
sinner as much as they hate
Yeah.
it.
And where Christians go wrong is when they start reviling people and hating people for it. And,
Oh yeah, for sure.
doing evil. That's what I meant when I said that, there's always an element of some sort of evil in the things that we do.
I mean, I got blocked because some dude told me that I didn't like being corrected, and I'm like, I'm not commanded to liking correction. I'm commanded to accepting correction.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if I'm irritable,
exactly.
I don't have to like. I even when the video said there's lots of things that I accept that I don't like. I accept that I have to exercise if I want to be healthy. I don't always like exercising.
Exactly.
I accept that I have to eat healthy I accept I don't always want to eat healthy, but I accept that I have to eat healthy if I want to be healthy. I mean, I eat a healthy diet if I want to have a healthy life. There's a lot, and I said I could list like an arm's length of things that I accept that I don't like.
Exactly. I mean, I think every Christian can have said this at one point, or maybe even say it now. And this is going to be a little bit crass, but man, does my dick wish that God didn't exist. My brain knows he does, so I can't stop myself.
I appreciate the bluntness, and like there's a probably at least 50% of my waking moments that's probably a contentious thing within my mind. Where I'm like, damn, I have to be pure. But I mean, the thing is, like, I know because I know that God is real and He is true, that there's no peace in being a fornicator. I've been a fornicator. There's no peace in it.
Yeah. I had a history of that myself.
I mean, it's, and sin is like one of those things. It's fun for a season, and then it comes and bites you in the ass and burns you to the ground.
Exactly.
I mean, that's why I like Turk gave this analogy. My ex really liked it too. He's like, sex is like, when it's used properly, it's like a fire that keeps the whole house warm. But when you take it out of its intended context, it burns the house to the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfect. Yeah. I was a whoremonger myself for a long time.
He's been kicked out of conventions for Turk because he was a rageaholic. Aaron's still a rageaholic. I think honestly, Aaron is addicted to rage and doesn't even know it.
He might very well be. The last thing I wanted to talk about here, we have about 20 minutes left.
Venting rage can actually feel kind of like empowering at the time, but I find it every time I lose myself to those things, I always feel like shit immediately afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the things that really separates us out. I think
Aaron just doesn't have the humility to admit that he feels like shit afterwards. But he has to, because like emotionally we're all wired the same. Like consequences. I mean, unless his moral compass is just like.
Oh, he has it, but he doesn't direct it towards himself. He directs it towards other things.
Yeah, so it's misdirected. But I think there's got to be a part of me that believes that he knows part of me that has to believe that he feels like shit and is convicted on things like just like everyone else is. If he's got a functioning conscience to some degree or another.
So, so we're gonna start wrapping up within the next 20 minutes here.
We've been going on for what is it, an hour 40?
Hour and 40 minutes, yeah.
That's as long as my debate with Stephen McRae. But it's been more cordial, of course. But
this is the part where I start talking about eschatology.
Okay. Explain for everyone what that means, because it's a big theological word.
Eschatology means end of the world stuff, or really, if you want to be even more simple, just what do you think is happening with in Revelations? If you want to be even more general, because that kind of wraps it up. But I have a few basic questions. They're kind of rapid fire, but I posted this last night, and these are my questions that I think that I want to ask everybody. Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean this from a theological perspective. Who are you? How have you wronged God?
Oh,
Who is the Antichrist? What parts make up the Antichrist? What of God does the Antichrist mock, and how? How do I play into the Antichrist? And what am I doing now that mocks God?
Okay, I just saw your 20-minute warning in the chat.
Yep. So I'm gonna post this this series of questions, and I just want to hear you go off about them.
Okay, just
if
go
you
through
would.
them one by one.
Oh, okay. Who are you? And I'm not asking you to like dox yourself like I did in the beginning of the conversation.
Okay.
Who are you?
Theologically,
Yeah.
I would say I try to drop labels as much as I can. At the all I try to be is a Bible believing follower of Jesus. That's all I try to be.
How have you wronged God?
I've fornicated, I've lied, I've stolen, I've manipulated, I've raged, I've maligned people, I've missed work when I shouldn't have missed work. I've said things about people that I shouldn't have said to people. I thought things about people I shouldn't have said to people. I was wrong in how I've treated atheists or non-believers altogether. I still continue to be wrong in how I treat atheists and Christians or non-believers at some point, either online or in person or both. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I still struggle with lust to some degree because I'm
Yeah.
a single young man and I'm healthy and I have a high sex drive, and there's nothing sinful about having a high sex drive, but it's hard.
One thing to fall to it.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing, is the difference between temptation and sin, right? Temptation is a sin, but temptation itself isn't a sin. And high sex drive is just kind of, I don't know, if you live healthy, it's actually pretty normal to have a high sex drive.
Yeah. Who is the Antichrist?
I don't know. But I believe that the Catholic Church is the whore of Babylon, but I don't know who they are. So, no, I'm being serious, but I don't know who the Antichrist is. I don't know.
What parts make up the Antichrist?
It would have to be someone that obviously denies Jesus Christ as Lord, and someone that would refuse to accept correction. I think those two things always seem to go hand in hand with my estimation of the Antichrist.
What of God does the Antichrist mock, and how?
I would think the Antichrist mocks God's power, God's creativity, God's personal desire with humanity. I think that's the thing I think that the Antichrist mocks most of all. And I think, of course, the Antichrist will try to mimic something somewhat similar to Christ himself, because, well, that's all Satan is he's just a foolish mimicker.
All right. How do you play into the Antichrist?
How do I play into him?
Yeah. How do you participate in Antichrist?
Every time I do things, every time I think, speak, or do things that are un-Christ-like, I am playing into Antichrist.
There you go. And finally, what are you doing that mocks God?
Well, it's kind of everything I just said. Everything I do, everything un-Christ-like would indirectly be a mockery of God. So if I'm lying or manipulating or lusting, I'm only not. It's not only a problem in the fact that it's mockery of God, but it's wasted time in giving a foothold to Satan. And
that too.
I'm doing it.
So, I am actually going to have a I have a rebrand video that's coming out, because I used to not do any video. I didn't used to be a floating mask. I used to just be a floating voice instead. And that was back when I was doing stuff like smoking weed while talking about this stuff. I was more political. I've really changed my track. And my thing was, I've been developing a systematic anti-theology.
You used to be like that, or you still are anti?
I don't do that other stuff, but I think I've finally finished developing the anti-theology. And I think that these are the most important questions for a Christian to focus on. So I'm going to give you my answers for these things now.
Go ahead.
One moment. Click, click, click. Who am I? I am the abomination of desolation. I am the Antichrist. I am the broken image of God, a pale, mocking reflection of his triune nature, the one in whom evil accumulates. How have I wronged him? As the body of the Antichrist, I betrayed, shamed, scourged, and murdered the Son in my heart, even though I knew he should have been my one true love instead. As the spirit of the Antichrist, I vainly stole authority from God, even though I know the Holy Spirit should direct my deeds instead. As the nature of the Antichrist, I falsely sat on the throne of God, even though I knew it was his. Who is the Antichrist? The Antichrist is the body, spirit, and nature of the Antichrist. That is yourself or your ego, your desire, and your sin, respectively. That is the Antichrist. That's part of my anti-theology. So, what are these parts that make up the Antichrist? So that is the self. That is the one who, what's the word? The one that falls to the sin and lusts after the desires. There's the sin, which is the nature. That's the one which consumes the self and sends the desires. And then there's the desire itself, which is the one that tempts the self and demands more sin. How does that mock Christ? Well, you might notice there's three of them. What of God does the Antichrist mock, and how? The Trinity. I think it's the structure of the Trinity that the Antichrist mocks itself. Not just Jesus, but like the way that the Son loves the Father and the Father fills the Son with the Holy Spirit.
Right.
The self lusts after the desire, and the desire consumes the self with sin.
Agreed.
Like the Holy Spirit fills the Son so that he could only do what he sees the Father doing.
Right.
We are sent by our own sin.
You know,
Our desires are sent by our own sin.
That I think the Antichrist mocks too is relationship.
That is what the Trinity is. It's the interrelationship of God.
That's where I was going with that.
That's good. That's good. Your desires are sent by your own sin, and you tempt yourself towards your demand for that sin. And then that mocks the Spirit, and then the sin itself, your sin itself, like how the Holy Spirit proceeds from God and the Son loves God, your own desires proceed from your sin. And
sure.
Boy, do you love your sin.
No, I don't. No, come on.
And that's the thing. You consume yourself more, and what little of God's image you have left, you continue to consume, and you send more desire to shape the world in that vain self-image.
Non-believers get if you use this kind of rhetoric with unbelievers, the reason they get angry is because they know we're right, that they love sin. Now
exactly.
Most people said, well, you just think that atheists all love sin. I said, come on, bro, we all love sin, irrespective of our worldview.
Like I like to say, while my soul makes my sin make me feel sick, does my donger love it.
Aaron Ross said he's talked to people that can prove there is no soul.
Yeah, okay, buddy.
Yeah, I know, right?
I think
you can disprove an immaterial thing, just like Aaron has definitively proved there is no God.
Yeah,
God.
Exactly. So you fall to your sin, and your sin sends more desire to tempt you, and therefore you lust after your desire, which demands you sin, and then your sin consumes you. So what I think, this is my metaphysics, this eternal process is what fuels the flames of hell.
I agree.
That if you were to be gone from the presence of God, you would no longer, the little bit of the broken image of God you still have in you would no longer have God to reflect. And that cycle would be all you would have. You would burn forever, you would weep, you would gnash your teeth, and your worm would never die.
Yeah, that's true. Scary.
And that's why we need a savior.
Yeah, and I think here's the thing too, and like Paul Washer, I'm sure you've heard of him. He said that there are no atheists, there are only liars who deny God.
That's a good one. That dude is tough on sin.
Oh my God. The thing is, like,
his whole, I don't know why you're clapping.
I would love for Paul and Aaron to have, it'll never happen, but I would love Paul and Aaron to have it. It would be awesome.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Paul would just roast Aaron. Unreservedly, like in love, but he would roast Aaron. Yeah, I'm serious, he would. Because
he would.
Paul would do it in front of, and the thing is, too, is Aaron would be like Aaron would have either one or two options if he would actually have a conversation, discussion, or debate with Paul Washer. Either he's going to have to be furious and walk out of the room, which is quite likely,
or he would have to avoid the discussion in the first place.
He would have to avoid the discussion in the first place. If the discussion happened, he would have to be furious to walk out of the room, or he's going to have to get humbled, like get knocked flat on his ass, like Paul, and come to Jesus, like. But if he were to talk to Paul Washer, would just go to town on that guy.
Oh man,
that would be wonderful to see Paul and Aaron hashing it out, wouldn't it?
Well, it's thanks to God that we hate our own evil. Yeah. That's the problem with these people. They hate the evil in others, but they don't hate the evil in themselves.
Well, that's exactly what Turk said. Like, okay, well, what about all the evil in the world? It's like, hey, here's a question. If God killed all evil people at midnight tonight, would you be alive at 12:01? I wouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly.
But Aaron, I wonder how our people like Aaron would handle that one.
Oh man, that would be a rough one for him.
Because here's the thing: is it's an impossible dilemma. Because if he says he would be alive, that means like it would obviously be exposing his own hubris. But if he were to say he wouldn't be alive, then he's also exposing his own flaws. So it's
exactly.
kind of, and if it's an impossible dilemma for someone like Aaron, because he
would have to admit he's evil one way or the other.
Exactly. So if you say you're not evil, then you're evil, and if you say you're evil, then you're evil. Like it's one of those. Yep. It's an impossible dilemma for someone like
the
me.
Atheist dilemma, which is why we just accept that we're evil and we just try to do better. We try to follow God as best as we can,
but the thing is,
we hold on to the Savior to be the one who changes us from that when we're done.
Well,
that's what repent means.
Exactly. Repent literally means change your way. Now, here's the thing: is like the Bible actually says one time in the Old Testament, you probably know of it too, where it says God repented. People say, well, how can God repent when he's not a sinner? Like, no, the word repent just means change your mind.
Exactly.
God changed his mind about wiping out a people because they repented.
And it doesn't say it explicitly, but he does that several times.
Oh yeah.
God says, I'm going to wipe these people out. Go tell them I'm going to wipe them out. Yeah. And then
and like Jonah's a classic.
Jonah goes to Nineveh, and then all of a sudden they change their mind.
I knew you were gracious.
Yeah. And then he gets butt mad at God for not wiping them out.
I know. God's like, not only do they have like so many like people, but they have like, I think God said they have like over 250,000 animals.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's kind of cool because God actually says, I actually care about the livestock too.
It's a good hatred to hate evil. It's a good hatred.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I think it's kind of funny that
Jonah, blessing.
Yeah, Jonah is upset that God is actually who he said he is. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, you're gracious. I knew you were gracious.
So why shouldn't we bask in God's blessing of hatred? I hate the Antichrist, and I am so proud and happy to say that.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I don't know about you, but I don't really have room for one. I don't have room for more than one enemy. One's enough.
Exactly.
I
think there's one enemy, and it's me, and I need to stop myself.
Yeah, or it's like, Or as one teacher has put it, our problem is not with people, it's with the lies that they believe, which is kind of a paraphrase from Ephesians 6:10. That our fight is not against flesh and blood. I have
against powers and principalities.
I have serious issues with that teacher. Teacher being Todd White. Teacher is Todd White. But he was right about that.
The joke is this, at the end of the day. I think God has a wonderful sense of humor.
Of course.
And he let us make our own joke. He let us play one hilarious joke on ourselves.
Yeah, that we know better than him.
That we played a trick on ourselves, and God isn't responsible for that because he's blessed us with everything. Yeah. We're the ones who played the trick on ourselves. Yeah. Our temptation is our own.
Not only that, we continue to play the same stupid tricks on ourselves.
Like, if I weren't prone to theft, I wouldn't be tempted by something that looks stealable. If I weren't prone to lust, even the most beautiful, sexy woman on the planet would not tempt me.
No, I mean, you might still find her attractive, but you won't give in to lust.
Exactly.
But then again, if you're a guy who doesn't find women attractive, there's something wrong with you too.
Ew.
Yeah. And no, there's actually a guy who actually said that if you're sexually attracted to someone who's not your wife, you're lusting. I'm like,
okay, buddy.
So
good luck.
It's like, no, the lust isn't the sexual attraction. The lust is taking the sexual attraction too far.
Man, I hope that royalty music in the background from the radio of wherever you're at doesn't cause issues.
It's I'm at McDonald's.
Well, I'm praying that God. You're having connection issues right here at the very end. I'm hoping that God blesses you, brother. I'm praying that he continues to look down upon you in love. Yeah. I hope that you manage to find work soon, man.
Yeah, thanks.
It's really rough being out of work.
Really
why don't you tell the people one more time where they can find you? Thank you for coming on so much.
You're welcome,
tell the people one more time where they can find you and what they can what they can do to help out if you need it.
Okay, well, you can find me at my Twitter handle is at RobLovesJC, all one word. My YouTube channel is Robert Groen, Groen is my last name. And, you can definitely pray for me. I mean, if you want to give me money, that would be great, if you want to, of course. I'm just saying, I'm in a position where money is needed, so if you feel so inclined, I'm definitely will humbly accept, but don't feel by any stretch of the imagination you should or have to. But
if somebody wanted to, where would they do that?
If they're Canadian, they could send it to me via e-transfer, and they could just ask me about that on my DM to Twitter, or they could email me. My email is robieg430@gmail.com, and doesn't matter if I give it out anyways because it's linked to my YouTube channel. That's how one guy who's been creepy, harassy, stalking me in email for like the last couple of months nonstop.
Yikes!
Yeah, it's not cool, man. I've literally blocked probably like 5 or 6 of this guy's emails. I'm not even kidding.
wow, that's
he just doesn't stop.
Freaky.
And then I blocked him and like numbered his accounts on Twitter as well.
Wow.
Like he's just a busy.
Rob, thank you for coming on. One more ad roll before we go. Again, people, if you want to get services for having your website hosted by somebody who actually has principles, please check out WebArchist. Again, that's if I remember right, it's webarchist.com. I could be wrong about that. There will be a link in the description. And again, if you want energy drinks, feel free to use my code IHTA at dubby.gg, dubby.gg. I actually really like their stuff. I'm carnivore except for Dubby. That's what I eat. That's my diet. It's like the only thing I'll cheat on my diet with. So
yeah,
thank you again so much for.
Yeah, sorry.
No, go on.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you've probably seen this on Twitter or some platform where that PETA has this ad that says, remember that Aoeui just had a family too, and then there's the responses. That's why when I go to KFC, I get the family bucket. No one gets left
There you
behind.
go.
You see that? You must have seen that, right?
That's funny.
Have you seen
We'll
that?
wait for Rob to come back, and then we'll. Oh, there he is. All right. Well, Rob, thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah. No problem.
Yeah, we heard the joke. No worries. Thank you for coming on again. It's been a joy. It's been great discussing this with you. And if you want to come on again later, just let me know. We'll come up with a topic and we'll do an episode, another 2 hours.
Hey, can I just say for like 15 seconds?
Go ahead.
All right, so tomorrow I'm going live on, I guess, at 10 a.m. with a Christian. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, honestly, on Twitter. I'm going to be a guest with Pete on 3 p.m. Pete is Aaron Roz and Jackson Wheat's producer. And on and on Tuesday, I'm going to be, we're shooting for Tuesday, but tentatively Tuesday is a good way to put it. Tentatively, I'm going to be on with Gary at FTW_crosstalk. That's his Twitter handle. I'm going to be on live with him on Tuesday. It'll probably just be like this will be live, and then it'll get uploaded and go on to YouTube or something like that.
All right,
So that's
awesome.
my schedule so far for this week. I'm open most of the week. and yes, please pray for me. If you're a Christian, pray for me to find a job. And after I find a job, find a good lady. So
there you go.
First the job, then the lady, right?
Exactly.
All right, sorry,
Got to get established first, right?
Exactly, yeah. As
anyway,
as my ex used to say, no honey, no money. No money, no honey. There you go.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you very well. Yeah, no honey, no money is what you say back, right?
Exactly.
Or no honey, no money. Well, thank you for coming on, man. It's been great having you on. Good discussion. And to everyone else, to the Antichrists listening, you should hate the Antichrist within. You need to fix yourself. You need to go to the Savior, because he's the only one who can sanctify you at the end of the day.
You can't fix yourself. That's why you need the Savior.
Exactly. There is no self-repair. There's only going to him, and he's probably not going to completely fix you until you're gone from this earth.
It's a tough thing to hear, people, but you're a morally bankrupt individual. Every single
You
one.
don't know what's good.
You don't know what's good.
You don't know what's good.
You're not good, and you don't know what's good. Only Jesus is good.
You suck. We're all retarded under the Lord's blue sky.
Like he said.
All right, Rob. Thanks, man. Have a good one.